Welcome back to the Perfect Season podcast. It's your host, Antonio. We have Jake and we have Alex. Alex, this is your first time meeting Jake. Jake, Alex, nice to meet both of y'all.
Was goody.
But today we're going over previewing, I should say, the Florida FSU series. Both teams hate each other. Both teams hate. Good rivalry, also known as the Florida Cup. Just learned that. Got some Tom Petty. I'm a USF fan, so how to rep the green and gold. We suck. I know. That's not what we're talking about today. Talking about FSU and Florida. Florida holds a 3-game series win streak against FSU, but now FSU's nationally ranked. What do you expect going into this game from both of y'all?
Honestly, I think it'll end up being an offensive shootout. But I will say FSU probably has a slightly more sound defense than we do. So it's going to be one of those games where Richardson's definitely going to need to have a good game. He has these past few weeks. I think, what is it? I think the past 3 or 4 games or so, he hasn't thrown a pick.
From the beginning of the season compared to now, Richardson has been looking a little shaky.
Yeah.
I have seen some improvement from Richardson, but I also seeing from what FSU puts up per game, what they did with Miami, what they've done to other schools. FSU is a good school, and this game's in Tallahassee. It's hard winning in Tallahassee, but Clemson did it.
It is. I mean, no matter what kind of year Florida State's having, it's always tough when you got to go to Doak.
Yeah.
But it's definitely going to be one of those games where we got as far as Florida goes, we got to come out fast and score fast, because if there's one thing I've noticed about FSU the past couple games, or at least, the last couple games that they lost, they don't just lay down and quit. I mean, the Clemson game's a perfect example. I mean, It started out a blowout, and then Florida State kind of started climbing back. But it was too late by the time the game was over.
Exactly. I would say the one thing I would have to say in reference to FSU football in relation to Florida's team, at the end of the day, these are two really, really good teams. And, regardless if one team is, first in the nation, the other one is 3-8, it's always going to be a good game. It's one of those rivalries that it doesn't matter what the records are, because what's going to happen. I mean, like last year, both teams were 5-6 going into the final game, and the winner got the bowl game. Yeah. And that game was incredibly close. What was the final score? It was what?
Like 24-20.
Yeah, something like that.
24-21.
Yeah, so it came down to 3 points, a field goal. In terms of, I would say, for FSU to have a good early start against UF, Travis needs to be able to have more than enough space to run the ball. In my opinion, I've watched the guy play for 3 years now. FSU football has looked the best that it's been since Jimbo Fisher has left to go to Texas A&M. Aside from that, if Travis is able to run the ball, even if it's only for 3-4 yards, if he's able to get out of the pocket, roll out, gain a couple yards, then I think we're just fine. If Florida forces Travis to stay in the pocket, throw the ball, I'm a little more worried. But at the end of the day, when it comes down to the brass tacks, Florida has looked a lot better over the past couple weeks in comparison. I mean, there were a couple games that were rough, but I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, the only difference between these two teams now, I mean, as of right now when we're filming this is Friday before, I guess it's technically week 12 of NCAA. I mean, FSU 7-3, Florida is 6-4. I mean, if you literally just take away the fact that FSU is ranked 19th right now, I mean, the only difference is one win. That's the only difference between these two teams. This is probably going to be the best, most
intense,
I would say maybe intense, maybe one of the most fair games at the exact same time. I mean, both teams are not the greatest, but they're performing at a level that they're still pretty good.
I will say, granted that Florida's defense has been a lot better these past couple weeks. I mean, they started off slow against Texas A&M and then shut them out in the second half, and then just completely dominated South Carolina. Granted, they've great with that. They I'm still not totally convinced until they play a better team, because I will say, as far as the rest of the teams that are left this season, Florida State will be Florida's defense's biggest test. Because, like I said, you're going to be at Doak. You got two amazing receivers. I mean, you got Johnny Wilson, you got Pokey Wilson, and another big guy besides Travis that they really need to, contain is Trey Benson. I mean, the guy's averaging over 7 yards a carry.
Mm-hmm.
He's got over 700 rushing yards. I mean, it's going to be a test, man. I mean, we have great running backs too. I mean, you got Montrell Johnson, you got Trevor Etienne. It's going to, I truly believe it's going to be an offensive shootout. And it's going to come down to whoever has the ball last.
Or whoever gets that first stop.
Yeah.
But so
moment.
So doing a little history reading about this, I didn't have much time to go over some stats this week. I've been busy, but some things I have learned. Florida does lead the series, 37, 26, and 2.
Yeah.
Florida's on an all-time 3-win streak with scores from last year, 24-21, 40-17, and then 41-14. And then the last time FSU won, 38-22, which that was in 2017.
Yep.
Now, back in 2017, I don't know who FSU had on their team, but that was a good team from what I was always told. And then another stat line, correct me if I'm wrong, Alex, I was using FSU's website. Okay. It said Florida State average yards per play is 6.9 yards after the ball snapped. That's true, right?
Sounds about right to me. I mean, in terms of passing yards, I mean, we're definitely not one of the best teams, but in terms of improvising, I would say FSU's on top with one of the top teams.
And they're only allowing their opponents to have 4.6 yards after carry. So what I expect from this game, like I agree with both of y'all, I think it will be an offensive shootout in the first half. And then the second half, I feel like Florida State's just going to dominate. Because I remember watching a lot of Florida games. I watched the USF game. That was a closer game than everyone thought it would be. Because, people were figuring things out.
20 or 30 something points before the game started. It was something like that.
The final score was 31-28.
Yeah.
So
I was just saying we were favored by like 30 points before the game started. So it was definitely closer and scary for us.
Yeah. That was the one game I bet against USF. But back to what I was saying.
I plenty of questions about that outcome.
Yeah. Just looking from how I've seen them play overall, it's in Doak, and when I went to Doak, it's intimidating to play in that stadium.
Oh yeah, always. No matter what they're having.
I mean, the tomahawk chop that y'all do, it's loud, it's crazy. I think FSU takes it this year. I think FSU takes it by 2 touchdowns.
As much as I would like to believe that, however, I like to think that I'm more of an optimist or as a realist FSU fan, because here's the thing when you get down to it. Okay, FSU 7-3. If you look at those 3 teams that we've lost against ranked NC State, ranked Wake Forest at the time, ranked number 4, number 5 Clemson.
Now number 9, but I have my.
What was it at the point of the game? Weren't you guys like 4th?
4.
Yeah. So FSU, when it comes to against ranked opponents, has historically this season not been the best. Now, when you look at teams that they are playing unranked against, okay, Syracuse, 38-3. They were previously ranked. All right. And then you had Miami, who at the beginning of the season was, projected to be top 10, blew them out 45-3. Georgia Tech, Boston College, Louisville. I mean, FSU, when it comes up against teams that are non-ranked, has been perfectly fine. However, Florida's 6-4. Okay, if they're 7-3, honestly, Florida should be ranked. And I don't see any way that Florida shouldn't be treating this, or as FSU shouldn't be treating this like it's a ranked game. But the thing is that even though FSU's had a good track record this season, the main thing that always brings me back to the floor watching FSU play is the Jackson State game last year, Division II, where FSU lost. on a last-second Hail Mary. I was at that game, and I promise you this, ever since that game happened, I have never been somebody been like, oh, this game's over. This game's over. The game is not over to me until it's 0-0 in the fourth quarter. So FSU could be winning by 10. FSU could be winning by 20 into the fourth quarter. I will not be sitting down and saying, oh, we got this in the bag, because I know FSU's track record.
And I'll be honest. I truly think when it comes down to it, because y'all obviously have plenty of talent. I truly don't believe that Mike Norvell is just the guy for y'all. Because he's won y'all some games this season, but I just truly don't think he's not a good situational caller. I mean, the NC State game was a prime example. Like, why would you throw all that close in the end zone that late in the game when you could just run it in?
Exactly. Or just take the kneel and then kick the field goal, because we were only losing by 2. We could have kicked the field goal and we would have won that game. Yeah. So I completely agree. I like Mike Norvell. I think he's great.
If y'all had if y'all had a slightly better coach, I honestly think y'all would only have maybe 1 or 2 losses this season at the most.
I mean, I would completely agree. Mike Norvell's play calling has definitely been questionable at certain times. You could look at the Clemson game where we were 4th and 1 and or 4th and 3. We run a fake punt on the 42-yard line on our own side. We mess it up. Clemson gets the ball back. They score. Aside from that, I mean, there's plenty of other times, and that NC State game is prime example. But I will say, if I'm going to highlight one thing about Florida more than anything else, is a lot of analysts were very quick to throw Florida out the pasture at the beginning of the season after they were having a rocky start.
And I get it.
And you know what? I mean, it's understandable. You know what? You look at some of those games, and you're like, okay, I get it. Okay, like a 1-score win over USF. Sorry, Anthony. That's just an easy example. But at the exact same time, you look at how they performed in the past couple weeks against their opponents. And the thing is that you also have to remember something, and I'll never admit this ever again for the rest of my life. Florida is in the SEC, all right? That is the hardest conference in the entirety of college football. So the fact that Florida is still sporting a positive over 500 record, 6-4 in the SEC, you put them in any other conference, I guarantee you Florida could be 7-3 or even 8-2. So
I mean, it's as big of a team as we are. I mean, you got to think there's a lot of guys on our team that still have at least another year or 2 of eligibility.
Yeah, so. Exactly. You guys got the talent. You guys got the opportunity to really have a really big push late in this season. You have 2 more regular season games. You got your bowl game. Obviously, you're at 6 wins. So you have a lot of forward momentum.
Out of the way.
What's up?
I was saying, from the way the season first started, I'm glad we're at least able to get that 6th win out of the way.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll be upset. I'll be upset if we lose to Florida State, but at least I can say we're going to a bowl game.
And you know what? I'm right there.
Who do y'all got this week for Florida?
We played Vanderbilt this week, so hopefully it should be a good confidence game. But we said that about Kentucky. So
I mean, Vanderbilt did just beat Kentucky.
Yeah, I know. That's why we did just say the previous week that it would be a conference game for Kentucky, and we all seen the result to that. So I'm going to say that we're just going to go in there and just blow them out. So
let's hope. I mean,
I'm not going to bad juju on us.
So, I was going to say some snarky comment like, oh, hi, it's Vanderbilt. But then again, I mean, I don't want to jinx it. I mean,
like, there's been so many upsets this year in college football, but
exactly,
you never know what's going to happen. But I got both of y'all winning this week. Comes down to an offensive shootout for the Florida Cup. Now, I don't know. One of y'all probably know this better than I do, but why is y'all's trophy a gator head?
Honestly, I never really did the entire research on that. I know
it's like off the bat or whatever, but you got the Florida Gators. I know. But then you also have the Seminoles.
It at least makes sense for if Florida State wins, it represents that, the gator head is pretty much, a symbol of, okay, we beat the Gators. It's like they chopped their head off or something.
I guess that would make sense because, I mean, if FSU wins, oh, hey, look, we got the gator head. Oh, well, if the Gators win, look, we defended our trophy. It's pretty much, I guess I would have to label it like that.
Because honestly, the only time I've ever really seen the gator head is when Florida State wins. So,
Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean,
But-
and then also looking at the other stat lines, I was seeing Florida State scores averages 30 plus points per game, 30, 31 points per game. They're only allowing their opponents to score 18. So I was doing research off the FSU website. So if we're looking at stats, both teams I know Florida just came off a great win against South Carolina.
Yeah.
And then Florida State, I forgot who y'all played, Alex.
We played Syracuse.
And y'all blew them out the door, basically.
Oh yeah, that was not even fair.
That was what, like 45-3?
It was 38-3 against formerly ranked Syracuse. Yeah, at Syracuse too.
And Clemson could only beat them by a touchdown, which was sad. But it is what it is. It is what it is. We got 2 easy win games this week.
Why you can't make a 100% prediction on who's going to win each week?
Because you never know. You never know what's going to happen with these games.
Mhm.
Like I've been way off with some of my predictions, but I've also come close.
You can't even totally count out FCS teams anymore.
No, because USF almost lost to Howard.
Yeah.
But going back to what I was talking about with points per game, now Florida averages 31 points per game and is allowing their opponents to only score 26. So I am agreeing with both of y'all saying I'm agreeing with both of y'all. I think it's an offensive shootout. I really do. And I hope for a high scoring game. These two games always end up high scoring, bad blood, fights. You never know what's gonna happen. I remember turning on the game last year and there was a fight in the end zone.
Yeah.
I will say, as an FSU fan watching that game after Thanksgiving, because it was Saturday, and I remember that game very clearly. I was flying back from Philadelphia, and I turned the TV. I was on my phone watching the game as we were driving back from the airport. Nothing was ever more humbling as an FSU fan than watching Dameon Pierce charge his way into the end zone without a helmet and still being able to bulldoze FSU guys, as if it was nothing.
I so wish that touchdown would have counted. That would have been amazing.
I'm not gonna lie to you, dude. I was watching that touchdown. They were like, "Oh, it doesn't count." I've been like, "Really? I would have counted it." I mean, the guy still made it to the end zone regardless.
Yeah, I know years ago it would have counted, but ever since they implemented the helmet rule, the play's dead as soon as it comes off. But it was still the fact that even though it didn't count, the fact that he still got in the end zone was crazy.
It was a huge morale booster for Florida in that game, and I'll be the first person to say that because I saw that play alone, and I was like, man, this is not looking good for us.
But I mean, it's like I've always said, it's always a good game. You never know what's gonna happen. Like both teams could come out and it could be a low scoring game. It could be a defensive matchup.
Defensive matchups are always interesting to me, but in this case, with a matchup like FSU UF, I want it to be each team scoring at least 30 plus points. I want it to be a shootout. Anthony, you just revealed the stats right there. I mean, FSU and UF are both averaging the same amount of points offensively. The only difference is Florida, on average, is allowing one more score per game.
Yeah.
So on paper, it should be good. Like it should be close game but high scoring. But I do have a feeling this game, this is where I'm taking a hot take. It's going to be in the 40s or the 50s
per team
for the final score.
That's pretty bold. But I will say that there is a very good chance that it'll be anywhere between 35 to 42 points.
I would definitely put both teams finishing at least in the 30s into the low 40s. I would say that.
Yeah.
But it should be, like I've been saying, good game. Both offense. Anthony Richardson has looked better from what I've seen. He's improved, but as I was reading, he's projected a top 5 NFL draft prospect, which I don't see him being top 5. I still think he has another year to make more improvements and see where he goes next year.
there's been a lot of speculation that there's a chance AR might, declare for the draft, which I really hope he doesn't because, a lot of people.
Do you have faith in your backups?
He wins out this last stretch of his 4 games that there's a chance he'll declare, but I really hope he doesn't because I feel like if he finishes strong this year, he should be inclined to come back and maybe try to make it to the playoffs. Because I really think that if he plays one more year, he will be a top 5 quarterback in the NCAA.
That's what I've been saying. Like, and give Anthony Richardson his time. Like what I've always been seeing stat lines from each quarterback from any team. I tell everyone, you can't judge just right then and there. You gotta give it time, let it settle in. It takes one game to be good. So it's not like, oh, you just wake up overnight and you have these 5 good games. You have your good games, you have your bad games. Now, Alex, I know I said I'm going to talk a little bit about Clemson, but I'm going to say this one thing. Look at DJ. I can compare him to Anthony Richardson. He's had a good start of the season, had 2 bad games, but last game against Louisville, he played better.
Yeah.
And now that was my one little Clemson rant because I could go on, but I'm not. And I feel like I was always reading I've heard Billy Napier might not be the guy. He might get fired after this year because of the slow start.
Which I think that's not fair.
But it's not fair to judge him. It's his first season as a head coach.
Yeah, he's taken on a lot of, Dan Mullen's recruits and guys that, have been playing a whole nother system. So
yeah.
I still think, granted, it's been, a pretty mediocre year for us. I still think Billy Napier is our guy. I
feel like he's the guy too. Just give him his time.
We just need to touch up the defense, and it's also a matter of just building trust within each other. And honestly, that trust is established. I really do think this will be a great team within the next couple of years.
With how Travis and Richardson have been playing this year, I mean, they're definitely been taking a huge step forward in comparison to last year. Last year they were serviceable. This year they've been looking great, both quarterbacks respectively.
If you were to compare the teams from last year,
we won't need to be worrying.
We won't need to, but from what I was saying about Florida from last year, the only reason Florida had that downward tumble or whatever you want to say is because Dan Mullen did get fired. Mullen got fired. Richardson hit the transfer portal. But he ended up staying in Florida. And you had a lot of people leave because they didn't like how Dan Mullen coached. But
we had no head coach, no DC.
And I was at that bowl game.
Yeah.
Sad.
But you know what? I mean, look at what Florida has done since that whole thing's happened. I mean, they had a scenario that hit them that most other teams, it would have crippled them for at least 2 years, 3 years minimum.
Yeah.
And in a span of not even a full year, UF goes out there, they get Napier, they convince Richardson to stay. And you know what? Look what they are now. I mean, they had a rocky start in the beginning. They're come back. They're 6-4, bowl eligible in their first game. I mean, Jake, like you said, Napier is the guy there. It's just plain and simple. The only difference is just building up that level of respect, that level of trust between the coaches and the players.
Yeah.
Like it takes time for someone to be a good winning head coach.
Well, of course. And then if you really get down to the brass tacks about quarterbacks, I mean, like what I was trying to say earlier, Jordan Travis, Richardson, both are doing very, very well. At any other team that's not a Power 5, they'd be considered to be one of the best quarterbacks ever to play at that school.
Yeah.
However, you let them both sit one more year, keep having them have
then
the
let
same
them
team
go
that
to
they
the
have.
draft.
And that, well, of course, they have the draft. But here's the thing.
Yeah.
FSU is a bottom 25 team right now. Florida, in my opinion, if I had to rank them on anywhere, I would say right now they're probably 27, 28. They're on the outside looking in. They're not that
They're receiving votes.
Exactly. Now, so you know that they're getting there. But if you let both these quarterbacks stay one more year, honestly, the FSU UF game of next year could be just as important as Michigan, Ohio State of this year, where both teams are in the top 4.
That's going to be a good game.
I honestly think that if it comes down to another year of Richardson versus Travis, it could come down to be one of the greatest Florida versus Florida State games ever played.
It means something more in this rivalry if they stay one more year.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, they've both been on their teams for about the same amount of time. I mean, they've both been around that team for a long time. They've both been building up the trust and respect of their wide receivers. All that's left.
Thing, it'll give them a better opportunity of building their draft stock as well.
Exactly.
Yeah, and what I would say, give the one more year, try and build your draft stock to a top 5 pick. Because Richardson's not going top 5 this year. It's point blank. I would say give him another year. That's what I would do. Finish your school year out. Play another year.
At best, if Richardson was to declare this year, it'd be bottom first.
I've seen late first round, early second, and third.
Yeah. Bottom first, early second. But if he needs to stay at least another year, not just for reasons of making it to the playoffs or anything, but just to build that experience and to convince coaches in the NFL and owners that he can be that guy for them.
Because it's clear as day, have we seen mock drafts? It's either Bryce Young or CJ Stroud going number 1 overall.
There's too many more experienced and more accoladed quarterbacks ahead of him right now. Like I said, you got Bryce Young, you got
CJ Stroud, Will Levis, who's hit or miss lately.
There's at least 3 backs that they'll be taking before him.
You got Hendon Hooker.
Yep, Hendon Hooker for sure. Hendon Hooker is by far a top 10 pick.
He's a top 10 pick. And if we're gonna get nitpicky about this, the top 5 teams most likely are taking quarterback. Houston, Vegas if Carr signs elsewhere, Detroit, Carolina.
Don't forget, you also have Stetson Bennett, who is also a clear first-round pick.
Yeah, Stetson Bennett could be a top 15 in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because I haven't seen much about him, but I've seen he's good, great. He has his ups and downs, but you also do got to remember Stetson Bennett is 24.
Oh, of course, but
he's an older guy. But I mean, how old was Joe Burrow when he got drafted?
Like 2021.
He's 23, I believe.
23.
22, heading into his 23rd year. I mean, Stetson Bennett's old. He's older for a quarterback. He's definitely. Yeah. He's no Brandon Whedon, who got drafted when he was 28. But I mean, Stetson Bennett is questionable. But all right, Anthony, you got any final questions?
I'm just, I always like to end on positivity. So but how about both of y'all say something nice about each team?
That's tough.
Jeez, okay.
I have to put y'all on the spot somehow.
Respect when it's due. It's hard to say anything nice though. I'm sure Alex as well.
But one thing
you gotta give me a minute. I gotta think of something decent.
One thing I can say about both y'all's teams, going to FSU and seeing the tomahawk chop, that's cool. I love tradition. That's a top 5 fan base tradition.
I will say their fight song and fight tradition it's intimidating and it's pretty cool, but you'll never catch me doing it. So
that's fine, Jake. You'll never see me doing the gator chomp. So we'll both agree to never do that.
I'll take that. But I also do like Florida singing Tom Petty. The Won't Back Down.
Honestly, right after Tom Petty passed, and the fact that they did not hesitate to implement that, for our fourth quarter tradition, I truly think, I may sound biased, but I truly think we have one of the best fourth quarter traditions in college football. Because it makes sense. Tom Petty's from Gainesville.
Yeah.
It's
a top 5 tradition, I would say.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't say it's the top tradition, but I do give it a respectable top 5 because I think, man, especially if, it's one of those things where even if you're just barely losing, it just,
it hypes you up.
Camaraderie between players and fans, to come together, especially when it's tough. And it's even better when you're winning in the fourth quarter. But as far as for this Florida FSU game, I'm not gonna totally say who's gonna win. Obviously, if I were to pick who's gonna be the winner, I'm gonna be a little biased and say Florida win. But I will say the winner game will win by no more than 4 or 5 points.
It's definitely gonna be a 1-score game.
Yeah, it's gonna. Yeah.
All right. So if I have to be nice,
you get to.
I guess I have to. I gotta say this about Florida. You know, I've hinted at it throughout the episode. I haven't really come out and said it. Florida's ability to keep fighting is definitely something that has kept them in games a lot more. Regardless of if they're down by 7, down by 14, 2, 3 scores, their ability to fight, to keep themselves in the game is definitely something that you have to respect. Because you know what, at the exact same situation, you got to see what the cards that they were dealt compared from last year to this year. I mean, losing a head coach, players wanting to leave, but then most of them start saying Richardson being the first one. The ability that Florida has had to turn a horrible situation into a pretty good one with a lot of potential for the future. It's not something that you would see many teams do, but Florida has done it in a way that they're still scary to play against this year. Florida's still a team that you cannot guarantee a win against.
Right. And like, oh man, I mean, y'all proved time and time again that y'all just, even in y'all's worst years, y'all have been this crazy second half team. It's like you'll just statistically would be horrible in the first half, and then just out of nowhere just would come alive, mid third quarter or so. But yeah, man, I truly think this is gonna be a dogfight.
I'd love to just plain out and say I think this could possibly be one of the best FSU UF games in a long time.
I can agree. If not this year, then definitely next year would be one of the best. But I will say though, regardless of the result, my next skit's gonna be interesting.
Your next skit's gonna be interesting. All right.
But that will most likely do for this episode.
I gotta do a Florida State skit besides SEC. Besides,
the traditions there, you gotta do it, right?
Yeah. But, I mean, I did make a Battle for the Sunshine State video between Florida, FSU, and Miami. I'm not sure if you saw that, Ray, but that was like early in the season. But I'm looking forward to making that Florida State one, regardless of the result. The jokes will be pretty immaculate.
Exactly. I'm waiting for it.
It'll be fun.
Yeah.
That will conclude today's episode. Once again, thank you so much for watching. We'll be back Monday. Me, probably just doing the overview of what happened this week in college football. Top 25 countdown. What did you see? Upsets, alerts, blah, blah, blah. Any movement in the top 10. But once again, thank you so much for watching. Leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe. Let us know what you think. Let us know what the comment of the game would be. Let us know where we're wrong, where we're right. But that will conclude it on my end, and this video will be up shortly.